Strategies for a changed classroom. That's what we're going to be talking about today. You will notice that there is a tiny URL on the bottom left-hand side of the slides. And so all of these slides are available to you. Feel free to play along. I'll put that in the chat as well. But we are, I know the Zoom shuffle. We are doing some interactives today. And so if you have a chance to be able to join in with some of the things, I'm trying to type and talk at the same time. If you have a chance to play along with us through some of the hyperlinks that we have in these slides, we would appreciate it. We love having interaction. We love having feedback. We love your participation as much as possible. So my name is Sue Thotz, and I am the Senior Program Manager for Common Sense Education, which is a nonprofit. And I work with teachers here in Southern California, and that's my email address and my Twitter handle. And I am joined today by my friend Tory. Tory, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, hi, I'm Tory Watlington. I'm a special education teacher for the Marietta Valley School District. I specialize in students who suffer from emotional trauma and behavioral disorders. I've been doing that for about 5 years now, off and on regular special education classes like SDC and RSP. And I've been using technology and my skills in equity to just kind of bridge that gap so that every student has, the same accessibility and just able to enjoy school and be successful. And that's my Twitter handle and email as well.
Yeah, so Tory and I are both part of the Equity in Action California group. And so that's how we know each other. We've been working together for about a year. And join the lunchtime session today to hear about some of the work that we've been doing here in Southern California. And Tory has a lot of friends and fans, of course, as usual. So today our topic is going to be about engagement practices. When we first started thinking about this session and what it is and what we're going to do, one of the biggest things that we talk about in our group is the ways in which we engage other folks. And so that includes in this year as we return to school in the fall, our students who will likely be at home and not physically in your presence, your families that are, how are we engaging families and really bringing them in as partners in this teaching effort, which is now more important. And then when it comes to folks of color, we were concerned about how folks of color are going to be engaged by their teachers and by staff after a summer of racial tensions and uprisings. And so we thought that was really going to be something important to address. And so the question for all of these is, how are we going to do this in a virtual world where we can't even come, face to face really? And communication and understandings and strong planning and honest dialogue are going to be really necessary and important. So the focus today is on trying to understand some of those needs. And then at the end, we're going to break out into small groups and work on a case study. So if you don't feel like talking to people, we're going to warn you and you'll be able to depart at the very end of our session. But we're going to practice today. So we're going to try to put some of this into practice. So we're going to begin by really thinking about students. And so with our students, we have opportunities to engage with our kids. This is a lot of what this conference is about. Oh, I'm sorry, the URL access, did that not work for you guys? The tiny URL? Are we all good? So if anybody's having any, if anybody's having any trouble, let me know. Try typing it in from there. But when it comes to teaching with your students when they are at home, I know a lot of teachers who are just like, how am I going to do this? And I think that a lot of what the sessions today and yesterday have been focused on is just, thinking about the strategies that you know well and building from there. So what I mean is when it comes to the strategies that you use for student engagement in your classrooms, what strategies have you been using as a teacher? Unless you are brand new, what do you already use to engage students? And so I'm going to back up a second. When I was asking Tory, yesterday, what strategies does he like to use to create, a welcoming environment and to engage his students in his class? Tell me about it.
Well, I like to create a community in my class with my students and make them all feel a part of the class as a whole. They're a part of when I make the directives. I don't like to call them rules. It's negative. Leaves a bad taste in your mouth. They're part of the classroom decoration. We're very thematic in our classroom, so they're part of coming up with the theme. We love music in our classroom as well, so we'll build a playlist together based on everyone's taste. And it just makes us more of a community than just a student and teacher classroom. So it's more trusting. The relationships are a lot deeper. We're more of like friends. I know it's weird. You're like teachers and students shouldn't be friends, but we're more friends and family. And it just makes the whole year a lot better and a lot smoother. So when things do pop up that aren't, really comfortable, we can handle it with a lot more ease because we're a lot of different parts, a lot of moving parts of one body, basically. So that's kind of what I like to go for.
Awesome. So I think when it comes to changing over to a virtual classroom, what is that going to look like, right? I just wrote in the chat, like he's using themes, he's using music, he's using art, and he's trying to create a sense of community. Does that mean that when he switches over to his virtual space, he will be dropping all that and turning everything into a Google Classroom that is sterile and there's none of that, right? Of course not, right? How can he bring in music? How can he bring in art? How can he bring in that sense of community, especially with this new group of students? So Tori, do you want to say something about that? Do you have any ideas, any plans for how you're going to do that?
I know for when we had the quarantine earlier this year and I made my virtual classroom, I made a separate page on our website that had our class playlist already posted on there and some videos of the class. And to this day, the kids still message me on the board and send me links to more music to add to the playlist. They'll send me pictures of what they're doing over the summer. And they're not even my students anymore. They've moved on to the 6th grade, so I won't see them anymore. But they're still so invested in us as a class. They're still playing together virtually. I'm hearing from parents still telling me what's going on. And so, yeah, I don't think it has to change just because we're going virtual. There's still ways to connect and engage with your students in the virtual space. You have to put forth the work and be creative, but it's out there.
It's out there. And I think, we have to think about these radical shifts. Like, yes, it is virtual, but when it comes to the activities that you did before. So for example, in my classroom, I taught 4th grade. And, if I'm talking about building relationships from day one, one of my favorite activities that I've seen lately is an identity chart. And I could do an identity chart if I were to come into my classroom and have my students build identity charts, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. I would have them all do it on a piece of paper, right, when they're walking in the door. And I thought about, ways to do this like virtually, right, like making identity charts at home and sharing them, this way, which is, that's not quite as easy as it would be to use something like a Jamboard. So if you're looking for, what identity charts are and what it is that I'm talking about, this is an activity that comes from Facing History and Ourselves. So I have the whole full lesson plan all about identity charts. And the purpose of this really is to help your students understand how they bring in their own identities into the classroom, build relationships with each other, and break down stereotypes, and think about how those identities shape themselves as individuals, as well as shape the community that they're part of. So this would be one of my opening day activities. And instead of doing it on chart paper, I want to do this using a Jamboard. And so I hope you all have seen Jamboards. It's part of the Google suite. I could do it using a Padlet. I could use Google Slides, right? I could do many different tools, but I threw in the Jamboard example here. And if you're on the slides, if you're on the tiny URL, these 3 are all exactly the same. It's just that Jamboard has a limit of 50. And so I could show you my example of what I did for this Jamboard. But it has, I have to do the Zoom shuffle. I just shared one as if I was creating one for my classroom, where I have my classroom where I've got, Harry Potter in my classroom and Hermione in my classroom, and I've got Ron. And so I just like started this one, and I put all my students' names in there. And the way that you add a name, or the way that you add something, is you just go over here. It's very simple. I think it's even more simple than a Padlet. You just click that sticky note and you write whatever it is, one of many siblings, if you're familiar with the Weasleys. So you just add a sticky note and you can, have your students add their identities all around on the Jamboard, and you can see, everybody else is bored as well. So as you're thinking about creating, opening day activities, how do you get your students to, share with each other in a regular classroom, translate that into an online setting? So if you want to play with the Jamboard, by all means, you guys can mess around with these. I've already got some created. Make your own, right? All you got to do is go up here and you add another Jamboard, right? I made one for Tory, and I asked him yesterday, hey, Tory, add your own identity. What identity do you want to add? And of course he said handsome. And so
I guess
I'm
I
gonna
can't add humble to that anymore.
yeah, exactly. Add humble to that. So I'm gonna put humble, right? Like that is part of his identity. That is part of who he is. And he had lots of people agreeing yesterday, of course, right? So so we can put that in there. And so you guys can mess around with these and play around. If you've never played with a Jamboard before, I just put some examples in there, and you can create your own as part of the Google G Suite. If you have any questions about that, there was a great Jamboard session here at IE Google Camp too. So I just wanted to say that there are so many other ways in which you think about your own classroom strategies and activities. I did a whole session on this last week for an EdWeb, and we talked about gallery walks, kinesthetic activities that you would do in a classroom. How do you do that in front of a Zoom, right? How are you getting your kids to move as part of your interactive webinar, or as part of your Zoom or your Google Meet? Think, pair, shares. How do you do that online? How do you do discussions and debates? There's lots of tools to help you with that. So if you wanted to watch that recording, it's here. This is hyperlinked. Feel free to watch that recording and see what else we do. But I didn't want to take up the time today because we got lots of other things to talk about. When it comes to accessibility, you also need to consider what your students have available at home. So Tory, could you say a quick word about accessibility?
Yes. Accessibility wasn't really important to me until I became a teacher. When I was younger and in school, I just assumed that every student was also going back to a home like mine. I mean, I knew of students who lived in foster care or had adoptive parents or lived with different guardians, but it wasn't until I became a teacher and started doing my own conferences that I learned that some students are going back home to shelters, some are going to live in cars, some are sharing spaces with a lot of family and may not have the means to technology or being able to get textbooks or their own set of paper. And so going forward into the virtual space, we need to make sure accessibility is on the forefront, because not every student is going to have access to computers to do their work online. And I know a lot of districts are trying to give students laptops or different devices, and that's great, but not every student may have a place to charge it. And it's not like the libraries are open right now for them to go to and work at as well. And so when I made my virtual classroom, I made a desktop version, I made a mobile version, and I also made a printout version for any parents that may have needed that. So that way each student was able to do the work and also do the fun activities we had without anybody missing out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So take into consideration what kind of access your students have in their home environments. And the best way to find that out is to actually have a conversation with the families, right? And get to know the families that your students are part of. And so we just wanted to make sure that we covered that for a minute and thought about what kind of strategies we're using to engage parents. Parents are going to be an even bigger factor this year because that is your gateway to your students. And if you don't have the cooperation and the partnership of your parents, and a true trusting relationship, you are not going to be able to have, full access to the students that you have at home. So, so I just wanted to think about, just some of the things that we talk about at Common Sense. I didn't say that Common Sense is a nonprofit. All of our resources are free, and we do resources for parents. A huge part of what we do is resources for parents around the ways in which they use media and technology with their kids. And how to help guide kids through this world of media and technology. So, so parents are that's in our wheelhouse. That's what we do. But we also do a lot with educators. So, finding a platform that meets the needs of parents, whether that be on mobile devices, whether that be on laptops, through text, through, websites that are mobile accessible. Find out what your parents are able to do, and what they have access to. So I put a couple of resources here, talking points and Remind. I don't know if any of you are using texting platforms, but that also do translation, right? So these will allow you to do translation very easily. If you send out general updates in a proactive way, like weekly or daily, right? And do it in a predictable way, and you put them consistently in one place, that is best practice when it comes to communicating with parents. And of course, my favorite thing is if you have examples of student content, student creations, student learning, that's what's going to get me as a parent. I have 2 kids. That's what's going to get me to open up your communication. If I see my kids and the work that they're doing, especially if it has been curated by the kids, if it has been created by the kids, I saw Seesaw mentioned in the chat, is an excellent way for you to engage your parents, is by hooking them with their own kids, right? So Seesaw, EduBlogs, I know I have a friend, our friend Leticia had her students come up with that weekly content that's going to go out to parents. And they were in charge of what was that weekly content. Like, yeah, there was a note from the teacher, but the students were the curators and the creators of what went home to parents every week. So you could still do that in a virtual environment. Tori, I guess the only other thing that I wanted to say is I saw this on Twitter this week. I was thinking of doing a parent-teacher-student meeting the first week of school, and so I could focus on each kid and find out what they were doing at home and find out what the best points of contact is, help parents get logged in, go over a site. I'm like, this is genius, right? Whether it be by phone or by Zoom, how do you help parents by making, that first point of contact at the beginning of this year, which is going to be so important. Got anything to add? What do you think of this idea?
I love it. And how you already know, kind of, I really put parent relationships, it's very important to me. And when I started off teaching as an intern, I did RSP first. And I remember all my IEP meetings being, they're different, they're difficult sometimes, but the ones that were the most difficult were ones called initial IEPs. And that's the one where you kind of have to sit a parent down and tell them that their child may have a cognitive disability. And this is in no way diagnosing, because we can't diagnose at the school, but this can just come after test, or a pediatrician from the parent says, get your student tested. And it's just not an easy conversation. And so instead of it being a lot of scientific jargon that I'm throwing at them about stats and blah, 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 I figured the parents were scared. And so I put making them comfortable and letting them know that this is a partnership at the forefront of all of our conversations. So that way they're more trusting. And so that's what I kind of think we need to do moving forward. The parents are nervous, it's not like it was a few months ago. Even though it was virtual, a lot of the parents were home, working from home, or maybe not working, and so they were home with their children. This time it's going to be different. And on top of that, we were really, we had a lot of leeway for the kids because of what was going on. So we didn't really put a lot of rigor and pressure on the kids to work, but this year it's going to be different. But you have to understand that the parents are still going to be scared. And so they don't know what's going on. You don't know what's going on. So making sure you build and strengthen that relationship with them is going to make your year a lot easier, because things may change overnight. We may all be virtual and then get a message over the weekend and say, we're coming back to campus next week, and then be on campus for a week and say, hey, we have to go back to virtual. And so making sure that relationship is so strong that when things change back and forth like that, the parent is still comfortable knowing that, hey, this teacher is really good. They're going to take care of my student and make sure they're successful. I have nothing to worry about. So yeah, and it is going to look different. You're right, Heather. It's going to look very different from elementary to secondary. That's one thing I thought about. Me being in elementary, the kids only have one teacher the whole day. So that's going to be in secondary. That's like 5 to 6 different teachers building relationships with the parent. So yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. No, I'm 100%. After he told me that story about like doing that initial IEP, I thought, what am I going to want to know as a parent, right? Going into that session, I want to know that that teacher is on my side. I want to know that that teacher is my child's advocate and that they're going to take care of my kid, right? Like that's number one. So I think we just need to keep that in mind. Yeah, for sure. And when it comes to, this is at the heart of what Tory and I talk about a lot, is thinking about these students of color, thinking about these teachers of color. And in our conversation in preparation for this, you know, we kind of thought about like what strategies are teachers using when it comes to coming back to school. Things are going to get weird. Things are going to get awkward this fall because I think a lot of teachers are coming back in with this idea that, oh my gosh, my eyes have been opened. I have read some books this summer. I didn't realize that I need to think about these things in my classroom. And you're going to have a lot of very enthusiastic teachers who really want to engage with their teachers of color and with their students of color. And I think this could lead to a lot of awkward conversations. And so I was trying to picture this, and I was asking Tory, you know, him being, are the only Black male staff on at your school? Yes. Hit that.
Yes, I am.
And like, you know, I was trying to picture what's going to happen when, you know, folks come back and they see Tory and they're going to say, oh, Tory, I wanted to talk to you, right? I want to talk to you, representative of your entire race at my school. Can you please help me think about this? I read this book and I want to know what I can do. I'm so sorry about this, this, and this, right? And I imagine Tory being, you know, kind of, you know, put into this position. And I thought, oh gosh, what would Tory want to say if, you know, if I give him the opportunity? What does he want us to know, us well-intentioned people who, you know, who are coming in and saying like, oh man, I really want to talk to you about this and tell you all about the things I've learned this summer and all about the ways in which I'm going to change, right?
Well, you know, like you said, well-intentioned, the intentions are well, and I wouldn't be rude about it at all. I'm just not that kind of person. But I think the number one thing to remember is just time and place. You know, I'm open to having the conversations, but not like in the hallway or if you just kind of catch me leaving the office or my classroom. And it is also kind of awkward though. It does put you in a weird spot because you may not want to talk about it. You know, right now, all I'm thinking about is getting back to school and getting back on campus and being around the kids and seeing the staff again. I'm not trying to go and have a lot of conversations and or debates about race and politics and things that happened this summer. Even if you said the intentions are well, and I'm happy people are reading books and their eyes are being opened, and my eyes got open to a lot of things this summer too. And just knowing that it's not just African Americans, but as well as like maybe the Asian community and the Latinx community and just the disabled community. There's a lot of things going on right now. And the conversations are gonna have to be, you know, had, and they're gonna be important, but it's just time and place, you know? Like I said, I'm open to it, but it's time and place. And also as far as your students, you don't wanna put the spotlight on anybody. You don't wanna have like, as soon as you see your Black student come in class, it's like, hey, well, guess what I read this summer? I read White Fragility, and oh man, let me tell you what I've learned. It's awkward for everybody. And I don't know, it's just awkward for everybody, you know? But it needs to be done. The conversations need to be done. And I think that maybe during staff meetings, setting aside time for that, if you have an equity team, I know my site has an equity team. If you can just like set aside time for that, then yeah, that's great. But just randomly on the spot, it's just kind of weird, you know? And it just doesn't, you don't know what to say because you don't want to come off as rude by saying, I don't want to talk about it, but you also don't want to open that door to everybody being able to come to you nonstop and just tell you what they've learned about, you know, anti-racism and stuff like that, because it can become exhausting to you.
Yeah. So I guess, you know, when we talked about it a little bit, I think some of the things that I pulled out of our group was, you know, the ideas before you talk to your teachers, you know, the idea of being genuine and sincere. I mean, of course, you know, we all know that you are well-intentioned and that you know, feel strongly about this and you want to express that, you know, that desire to show that you are making an effort, right? But more importantly, you know, be genuine in your actions, right? And I think we also said like, don't expect a reward because you read a book, right? Don't expect that, you know, recognizing someone as human doesn't earn you a cape. Kind of was, you know, less performance and more action here. So, so when it comes to what we're talking about as it relates to students, We also want you to consider this idea that students have, there is possible racial tension at school and your students can feel it. Some of your students have been through trauma since you have last seen them. And that, your kids, a lot of your students have been socially isolated for a long time. And you need to really pay attention and really listen to what their needs are. And yeah, cultural responsiveness is crucial for student engagement and connection to learning. And when teachers lack knowledge of the cultures, it creates a gap between community and educators. All right, Lila, is that your name? Oh man, I can't read that. Yes, so yes, of course. So read that chat. I am 100% in agreement. There's lots of good stuff going on in the chat, and I appreciate having Tory's perspective. I appreciate the perspective of all of my friends of color. And when it comes to resources, like what can I do in my classroom? When I'm talking about action here, if you're saying, where do I start? I'm giving you a list of places to start right now. This is a list of social and cultural literacy resources for classrooms. This is a curated, This is a curated list of resources that Common Sense has put together, and we are just one place that shared resources when it comes, and they don't just come from Common Sense, they come from all kinds of places and all kinds of trusted places like Teaching Tolerance and Facing History and the African American Museum. And so I just wanted to share this list. It's certainly not exhaustive, but it's a well-curated list of places and resources to consider for your classroom, such as facilitating challenging conversations, right? Or that one about identity charts, that's also in here. Where I'm From poem, right? So use this place as a source of resources for thinking about what kinds of activities and ideas you can get for your classroom as it relates to bias and prejudice, right? Anti-racism resources for all ages. This is the Critical Media Project right here at USC, one of my very favorites, collection of videos and activities focusing on how identity is presented and negotiated in media. So African American History Museum in DC, excellent source. Yeah, that was one of these that was in here. So if you're looking for a place to start, I'm giving you a place to start right now. And of course, I also included a back to school teaching toolkit from Facing History for an inclusive classroom, books about racism and social justice, those are all in there. And of course, our Equity in Action Wakelet that has a collection of also resources. This is good stuff, right? There's lots of places to start right here. So now we want to move into practicing, right? So if you don't like people, you are, if you're not here to just kind of have a conversation, you are welcome to bow out. I know not everybody is up for a talk, maybe now, but I hope you'll stay. We're going to consider the following scenario, and we are going to break out into small groups. And the scenario is your students join your virtual classroom, right? This is you coming back to school this fall. One of them is wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt, and a parent of another student sends you an email, right, explaining that the classroom environment is no place for a political statement. They request that you as the teacher ban such statements. Students are not allowed to wear this type of shirt. And if you think this is a far-fetched scenario, go search up Black Lives Matter shirt, like students being kicked out, and you will see multiple examples from our, from recent months. I put in one here from a six-year-old being kicked out. This is hyperlinked to the Forbes article about the same thing, which I didn't mean to click on it, but it's there, right? So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna break into breakout rooms, and we're gonna spend 5 minutes in those breakout rooms. You'll have about 4 or 5 different partners in there. And I have a set of slides that if you are so inclined as a group and you want to share what has come out of your session, feel free to join these slides. And if the breakout rooms are numbered, groups 1, 2, 3, 4, I've kind of started some here, or group 2. If you're breakout room 1, you use group 1, right? And so on. If you don't see your number, because we have 1 billion people in here, make one up. Add a slide and make up your, add your number. So if you want to share, you'll have to do it, in a written format. because I don't know that we can, you know, have everybody share at the end because we have a large group. But if there's no questions, then we could get ready to break out. Marissa, are you ready to break us out?
Yes, ma'am. Let me see. Give me just one
Okay.
moment. So green means go. 1 moment. And you said 5 minutes, correct?
5 minutes, and you don't have to turn on your video. You don't have to share your face. You can participate in a small group discussion about the scenario and what you and your crew would have to consider. Oh, I also put a slide in here that says, don't forget, start with something you know well, right? And build from there. Don't just address the First Amendment issue, but the culture and climate of your classroom. How do you establish culture in your regular classroom? And how do you maintain a partnership with your parents in a professional way that treats them with respect? You're just going to get started. 5 minutes, begin your conversation.
Here we go.
See y'all back here in 5 minutes. Should I do a song and dance while we're waiting? This is the fun part. This is why you come to a conference.
Hi, Marissa. Do you happen to know where a particular participant, which room they're in?
Yep. First and last name?
I think they're signed up under Kylie Barrett, Kylie. Last name Barret.
See here, Barrett.
Because her name is Sherilyn, but she's using, I believe, her daughter's laptop or something.
Let's see. Barrett. I'm down to breakout room 9. Breakout room 10.
Breakout room 10? Okay. Could you send me and Kat or, Kat and I to that room?
Let's see. I have never done that before. Do you know?
Okay.
Actually, no, I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
I think I figured it out. I did say the room 10. Okay, so you suggest yourself or both?
If you could send both of us, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
Actually, no, just one of us. Just me. Just me is fine.
Gotcha. And are you, where's interpreter Jake? That's not you. Let's see here. I got it. Okay, let's see.
Thank you, Marissa.
Yes, absolutely.
Actually, I haven't received anything yet. I don't know how long it takes.
Let's see here. Price. shows actually Kat is in there, but she's not joined.
Nothing's popped up for me. It's Kat here.
Hi there, Kat.
Hey.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, we're trying to move one of you over to room 10. It looks like I was trying to move Scott over. That didn't work. And I see that you are in there, but it says not joined. You're literally in the breakout room, but it says not joined next to your name. So that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Okay, weird.
Going through all my functions here to see what I can do. No, I don't want to. I'm so sorry. I never moved anyone around before, and I thought I had success, but I don't think so. I'm so sorry.
That's okay, no worries.
I'm highly worried. But thank you.
Technical difficulty. We're used to them.
I think they're coming back.
Okay.
Marissa, you did it. You sent us all. Does it feel like we're time traveling? Like you sent us all to another space, and now we have returned to the main room.
And I'm so sorry. I think right before I sent the breakout rooms, I didn't mean to click breakout room yet, but I just did.
No,
all
you're
of a
good.
sudden, and I cut you off. I was like, oh my gosh,
Oh
still
no,
speaking.
I was not cut off because I was just chatting, right? How
You're
did
gonna do a
everybody
dance.
do? I was gonna do a dance. I didn't have to do a dance. Thank goodness. I know. Was that the fastest 5 minutes ever? I know. We could always use more time. And so what I want to emphasize here is that this was just a taste. This was just to get your brain rolling and thinking about this might be a situation that you face this fall, right? And so rather than waiting for this situation to happen in your classroom or in your school, think about what kind of proactive steps you can take right from the first day to establish what that culture is in your classroom, and so that your families, your students know, you know, what your stance is when it comes to you know, your feelings and the tone of the classroom. What is the culture of that classroom that you are setting? And how are you going to make sure that, you know, you are able to address these issues in a confident way? The other thing that we talked about in my breakout room was having the backing of admin, right? Finding out where your admin are on this and challenging them and seeing what, you know, where do they stand on this, and how do you make sure that, you know, your students and being inclusive and, you know, having an inclusive classroom is right in line with what your admin have to say. I see a couple admin in here, Principal Large. And so I think that having that conversation at a leadership level is really important and part of being a proactive, you know, anti-racist classroom. Tory, do you have anything else to say?
Yeah, I won't share the person's name in my group, you know, so they can, you know, for anonymity reasons. But the person that was in my group, we talked about how in her rural area, there's only one African-American family in the whole school. and that there's only one other African American staff member in the whole district, and that they kind of carry that burden of, you know, being the charge for this change, and it's exhaustive but necessary. And so just kind of being mindful to that and what other people may be feeling or dealing with, and just being able to listen when they feel the need to speak up and have those hard conversations, even though we know it's going to be hard and tough and may make you feel uncomfortable. It's just important to be open to those things.
Absolutely. And if you get a chance to kind of look through some of the breakout notes, I'm able to just quickly look through here. But of course, group 2, I don't know who you are, group 2, but understanding that, yes, Supreme Court has held that students have a right to free speech, Tinker versus Des Moines. Political speech is a protected right, but acknowledge that parent concern, right? And I think that those are important things to consider, right? And how do you maintain that relationship with that parent so that you are, still respecting that parent and bringing them in, but how do you take a stand on what it is that you feel like needs to be said in your classroom? And how do you prepare yourself for that, right? Along with your leadership at your school site. So I'm sure there's plenty of others in here that are really, I hope you all had meaningful and thoughtful conversations. We are about 5 minutes away and from the conclusion of our session, but I just wanted to, I wanted to see if there's any other kind of questions that folks had that before we close and find out. Oh my gosh, so many good. Thank you, Room 19, for sharing. I'm just gonna sit here and read the chat for a second, see if there's anything that we need to consider. This is relatively new territory. Absolutely. And that was acknowledged in my group. Like, there are things that we have a quick answer to and that we feel strongly about and we have evidence for. This is still, but I want you to start thinking about this as well. Are the equity teams the same as the Pbis teams on campus? Are they or are they not, right? Is Pbis something that is addressing equity? Should they be? Right? Maybe that's a good question for you and your campus. To me, I haven't seen a whole lot of evidence that Pbis team is focused on equity in a lot of cases that I have seen. So these are important conversations. Your equity team could be rolled into your Pbis team. They could be partnered together, certainly. But yeah, for sure. So these are great questions. I'm sorry that we only have 2 more minutes to finish out this conversation. I appreciate all of you coming in today and being vulnerable and sharing with your small groups. I hope this is the beginning of a conversation. I'm going to share my screen real quick. If you have more questions, answers, we're not pretending to be experts on any of this necessarily. We are just pretending to pose some ideas and thoughts for you to consider and start these conversations at your school site. And when it comes to engaging your students and creating that culture with parents, you have a lot to consider. And we hope that you will be real and authentic and share that, share these conversations with your leadership and create equity teams at your school that will allow you to feel confident when it comes to, how to address this type of situation. So if you have any feedback for us, of course, please do the feedback, the quick, happy face, smiley face, sad face on the SCED. But of course, if you want, I also take feedback at our SurveyMonkey at Common Sense. If you feel like doing so, you can follow us on Twitter. We are doing a lunchtime session today. And of course, if you have any thoughts or ideas that you want to share to the IE Google Camp hashtag, please feel free, because we love to hear what you have to say. So thank you all for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Tory, you got anything to close out? Want to drop a mic or something?
No, I don't really have anything. Just thank you for being here. I know it was probably weird and awkward at some points, but you guys stayed, and that's great. That just shows that you all really look forward to the change and making things equitable and accessibility for all for the next school year and going forward. And that makes me excited and comfortable for when I eventually have kids of my own, that there are a lot of teachers out there who are really ready to make school comfortable for everybody. And I love that. So You guys have a great day.
All right, thanks, Sal. Take care.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Marissa.
Thank you. You guys are both wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right, take care. Have a good day.
Likewise.